What's good, YouTube? It's Mirror back in this video. I wanted to make this today to talk about in-depth where to actually hand trap in order to beat the Snake Eye Fire King / the pure Snake Eyes matchup, because obviously we're sort of in a metagame right now where those decks are just everywhere. So if you're going up to a Regionals or YCS or even just Locos, I'm sure there are a lot of competitive players playing these decks. And online, there are a lot of people doing different things. Like, I've watched a lot of DB games on YouTube and here and there. People are responding to different actions, obviously, because there's so many different lines that you can play with this deck. But from my experience so far, I want to tell you guys how I think is the best and most optimal ways to actually hand trap. So this is going to be more of a raw video, but diving in, Ash Blossom. Should you Ash Bonfire? At the beginning, I thought that you actually shouldn't, but actually, after running through some plays and things in my head after playing a couple of events, I realized that you should actually Ash Blossom the Bonfire. Why? Well, because if you think about the circumstances in which a player would activate Bonfire as their first action, you kind of have to consider a couple of other things. Number one is the fact that Drone Lockbird exists. So generally, a player that has both Snake Eye Ash and Bonfire in their hand, it would make no sense to lead with the Bonfire and just play directly into the Drone Lockbird, whereas you could just normal summon the Snake Eye Ash, use the effect to add Poplar, and then if you get drolled, you can still kind of play because you got a free Poplar. Instead of using Bonfire to add either Snake Eye Ash or Snake Eye Poplar, you just get drolled and you're kind of, you take a -1 because then your Ash that you actually have in your hand, if you had it, would not be able to search anything. So when a player activates Bonfire, generally that means that they're probably using that as their only play. But it doesn't disinclude the existence of Diabellstar the Black Witch. Now, one thing I realized is that if a player has both Diabellstar the Black Witch and the Snake Eye Ash combo lines, it's a lot better to lead off with the Snake Eye Ash. Why? Well, because leading with the Diabellstar, yes, it might bait the Veiler or the Imperm, but it also plays a little bit harder into Nibiru because you're committing that extra body onto the table first. Now, yes, you can technically play around Nibiru with Flamberg Dragon, but committing that extra body in the Snake Eyes, Diabellstar Dark Witch rather, is just committing more resources and you kind of get punished. Whereas if you commit the Snake Eye Ash to the field and it gets Imperm to Veiler, it doesn't really matter because you can just follow that up with the Diabellstar the Black Witch and get the same combo line more or less. So that's my personal opinion on why you should Ash Blossom the Bonfire. Now, I actually ran these numbers through the geometric calculator, the hypergeometric calculator, and in average, I would say most people are playing like 42 or 43 in their deck, and the chances of actually pulling a starter plus another starter, so 2 starters, is about 59 to 60% chance, and the chances of them actually opening a Witch in a 42 card deck with 3 copies of Wanted and 3 copies of Diabellstar is about a 55% chance. So I would say it's close to about 50% for them to actually have the Bonfire and Diabellstar. Yes, that number does seem a little frightening, but just remember that about 50% of the time when you do Ash Blossom the Bonfire, there's a high chance that they're actually going to pass. Now, that doesn't include other combinations of cards, right? Obviously, if they open cards like Fire King Island or other cards like 1-for-1, other ways to still play, then that means that this percentage might be a little higher, but it still guarantees you a sizable percentage of the time where your opponent is actually passing straight up to the Ash Blossom on the Bonfire, which is why I come to the conclusion, all things considered, with those percentages in mind, as well as the chance of them playing around Drone Lockbird, it's just correct to Ash Blossom the Bonfire. And I'm sure you guys seen a lot of players on stream at YCS Vegas actually do this, but I am in complete and total agreement that you should be ashing Bonfire. The deck is a lot like Kashtira back in the day where you only have 13 or 14 starters, and it's very easy to brick and pass because of all the non-engine that they play, right? So guys, yes, Ash Blossom on Bonfire. Is there an argument to Ash Wanted, though? When would you Ash Wanted? I mean, there could be an argument to actually Ash a draw phase Wanted, for the reason that a lot of players have realized that they're actually only going to be activating Wanted in the draw phase when it's one of their only plays, right? If they actually had Bonfire, there's no real reason for them to play the Wanted here. Or if they have a copy of Snake Eye Ash and the Wanted, there might not be a reason for them to reveal the Wanted early. I mean, personally, if I have Ash Blossom and Wanted, I'm still going to lead off with the Ash just because the fact is, I mean, personally, when I have both Wanted and Snake Eye Ash, I'm still probably going to use the draw phase Wanted just because if you play into Imperm and Droll, then it becomes a punish because you go Snake Eye Ash, they Imperm, and then you go Wanted, add, and they Droll, then you kind of get punished there. But I think a lot of players are still realizing that the extra knowledge is a little bit more reasonable to hide as opposed to just showing that early on. So they're actually just still going to commit the Ash to the board before activating Wanted. So them, all in all, this is tricky, but yes, them activating Draw Phase Wanted, there's definitely a good argument to use the Ash Blossom there. If you're playing Ghost Spell, I would absolutely use Ghost Spell on Wanted, probably almost every time, just because it's a lot less impact card than Ash, and hitting a potential 1-card starter that they had in their hand is just very big. But for Ash Blossom, I think if they go Draw Phase Wanted and your hand is kind of weak, I could definitely see a good argument to actually Ash Blossom the Wanted and put them on having an additional extender, which a lot of times they just won't because of the sheer fact that they activated Wanted in Draw Phase to add and play around Drone Lockbird, and this is their first play. Okay, so next, let's talk about using Ash Blossom on the actual Snake Eye Ash search effect. Should you Ash here? Personally, I'm not a huge fan of doing this because of the fact that it does not actually nullify the entire Snake Eye Ash ability, right? It's not like Effect Failure or Infinite Impermanence where we're negating the entire effect, which includes the effect for them to actually send the Snake Eye Ash to the graveyard to summon out a Flamberg or an Oak. So using an Ash Blossom here just feels a little bit minus, in my opinion. It's just like the fact that they still have the Ash body on the board. It gives them the possibility to even extend further by going into an Oak, just by placing something on the field, maybe like a Sanctuary, and all of that in addition to the previous percentages that we talked about, where they actually might open the Dwell Star / Wanted / the 1-for-1. Personally, I just don't agree with this. I know some players are actually going for this, but I feel like it's a little bit better to actually use the Ash Blossom when they're using the effect to send, for example, to summon out a Flamberg Dragon. But that depends. I feel like using Ash Blossom should, you should recognize the lines that they're actually going for before using the Ash Blossom. For example, if they use the Link Haribo line where they place the Snake Eye Poplar and then they use the Ash plus the Poplar here, I think it's correct to Ash because there's no chance of them actually going to Oak easily without an extender. But if they're actually going for the APOLLOUSA line where they go normal summon Snake Eye Ash, search Poplar, and use the effect Tribute off both, this is where you can actually Ash Blossom at a crucial point. If you Ash Blossom here on the Snake Eye Ash, what happens is when the smoke clears, they are going to be able to get the Poplar back on the table, and they're going to have the original Simple Spoils that they searched, or the temple that they searched off of the Poplar, right? So they're still going to have a way to summon out Ponix and still go to the Fire King engine or summon out Oak. Now, another thing you can actually do, which I think I personally prefer, is allow them to resolve the effect of Snake Eye Ash sending Poplar and then summon out Oak. And then on a new chain, they're going to go Chainlink 1 Oak to play around Ghost Spell, and then Chainlink 2 Poplar to place itself back. And then Oak is going to summon back the Snake Eye Ash, and from here, they're actually going to use the effect of Oak to send the Snake Eye Oak plus the Snake Eye Poplar. I think this is probably where you should Ash, the most optimal line, in my opinion, because if they're going for this line, obviously, they're going for the APOLLOUSA play. If you guys don't know what that is, it's basically they're going for the Flamberg on under 5 summons, and then they're going for the APOLLOUSA before they activate the original Simple Spoils. So then that way it plays around the NIBIRU and it plays around Ash Blossom because you're not going to be able to Ash the original, which is why you're forced to sort of Ash here. Now, previously, we just said that, you know, you could Ash the Snake Eyes Ash and then they're left with a Poplar in the skill zone. But if you Ash the Oak, yes, they get the Snake Eye Ash as a monster body instead of the Poplar in the Spell Trap Zone. But we've pretty much just guaranteed that there's 0% chance of them actually getting a Flamberge out because the only cards that can really summon Flamberge are Snake Eye Oak and Snake Eye Ash, right? And we've kind of cut them off from Snake Eye Oak. If we just Ash the Snake Eye Ash, there might have been another way for them to get Oak access, whether that be like a 1-for-1 or like a Witch or whatever, yada yada. And then they're eventually going to get a Flamberge on the field, which gives them 3 bodies to link climb with. So Ashing here, yes, it gives them a body, but it almost guarantees that there's a 0% chance of them getting the Flamberge out, which is very, very nice. Yes, they'll have the Snake Eye Ash on board, but 9 times out of 10, they're going to have to send it off of the original anyways, because the chances are they're not going to have anything else to send for the original Simple Spoils, unless they have like a Witch or something, right? So it doesn't really have that big of an impact difference, them having the monster body on board as opposed to the Sparrow Trap body. So that's my thoughts on where you should Ash when they start off with the Snake Eyes Ash.
Really quickly, if you guys aren't already subscribed to the channel, definitely consider hitting that subscribe button at the bottom. It'll go a long way to support the channel. Other than that, thanks a lot for tuning in.
So when it comes to Infinite Impermanence and Veiler, I think this one's a no-brainer, but generally you should be using it on the Snake Eyes Ash, just because we previously talked about the percentages, the low chance of them having the extender, on top of the fact that you kind of get dual utility out of this. You know, it's a little sad to say that it's a 2-for-1 dual utility because you're really just hitting a card and you're going -1. But the fact of the matter is Snake Eye Ash has so many abilities, one to add and then one to send, and you're dealing with both of that. So you're getting some value out of that. They're basically going to have to get rid of the Snake Eye Ash in the graveyard and then resurrect it off of Princess in some capacity to be able to use the effect to send for Flamberge or have Oak access. Basically, they're going to have an extender, right? So that's why I think you should be doing that. Now, there is an argument to actually hold the Infinite Impermanence and the Effect Veiler when you have Nibiru, but only if you're guaranteed to know that you might be able to punish them. For example, if they're actually going into the APOLLOUSA line, for example, you're in game 2 or game 3 and you already seen them try to go for that APOLLOUSA line before activating Original by sending the Poplar and the Snake Eye Ash, then we might be able to actually hold the Effect Veiler and the Nibiru in game 2, game 3, because their end board actually plays very hard into Effect Veiler and Nibiru. We can actually go Nibiru, they negate with Apple, we chain Infinite Impermanence or Effect Veiler, and they basically lose their entire board. So that's just some very, very, I would say, high-level foresight that you have to kind of gauge. But if you're not really comfortable with that type of gameplay, I would say definitely just still be safe and use the Effect Veiler and Infinite Impermanence on Snake Eye Ash. I'm still going to do this every time in game 1 just because I have no idea what my opponent's going to be doing. But game 2, game 3, I might calibrate. Another time that you might actually hold the Infinite Impermanence and Effect Veiler is if you went first and you got your Ash stopped and your hand is kind of volatile and you can't really risk playing into Tactics Talent, right? Like if I went Effect Veiler here and my opponent had Tactics, they just rip out the Nibiru and we kind of just lose from there. So in that circumstance, you might actually want to hold the Effect Veiler and the Nibiru just before they go for the game shot, and then just nail them with both, and hopefully that is enough for them to pass turn, and the Triple Tactics Talent is just not that high of an impact at that point because you've used both of your high impact hand traps. So with Nibiru, it's a little bit more tricky because, again, everyone's kind of doing a different play, and you have to really be able to read the line and see what exactly they're going to do or what they're going for to know when to Nibiru. One of the prime locations to Nib is actually when they go Sunlight Wolf plus the 2 bodies on the field that they resurrect off of Flamberge. This is obviously the play where they go into the APOLLOUSA. Again, they're just setting up these resources before activating the original Simple Spoils from their hand, so that way they play around Ash Blossom. And this would be the time that you want a Nibiru, because if you wait for them to commit like a Link Removal to the board, it's not guaranteed they might actually go for that. There is a card called Doolittle Chimera that a lot of the better players are going for. So if you actually wait to nib here and you nib on the Doolittle, that actually puts a Doolittle in the graveyard. And because Doolittle is actually a beast type, what it means is they can later use Arvada to bring back the Doolittle Chimera in the Fire King build. And that's just like a free body because they're bringing back a Link 2 monster as opposed to a regular monster that can only be used as Link 1 fodder, right? So in my opinion, just Nibiru right when they have the Sunlight Wolf plus the bodies. Otherwise, they could also, if for whatever reason they just go directly in the APOLLOUSA with 2400, that's also possible. So yeah, when they have the 4 bodies here, or the 3 bodies with the 4 link rating total, that's a prime location to Nibiru. Yes, they are still going to be able to play with the Fire King stuff, but you're getting rid of the Apple, and you're also getting rid of any potential other things like Doolittle Chimera coming out, or like a Heat Soul. I mean, with Nibiru, you also have to be very, very careful anytime that they have the Temple active, because committing a Nibiru to the table sometimes actually helps them more than it does you, because you're literally allowing them to special summon back a monster in the spell or trap column, and a lot of times they might just have Flamberge, or even worse, a Snake Eye Oak. So if I commit Nibiru here, like, yes, my bodies, like, I get rid of the bodies, but it could be very, very bad, because they can go Chainlink 1 Flamberge, Chainlink 2 Divine Tempo. They're playing around Ghost Spell, and they're getting a bunch of bodies back on the field. So that might not be the ideal scenario, and they're also getting the token as well. So sometimes that can hurt you more. So just recognize, you know, when to Nibiru, and if it's even worth Nibiruing, because at certain times in the grind game or whatever, Nib is just not very good when they do have the field spell up. So just beware of that. Other thing that I will say with Nibiru is the fact that it actually is very, very good when combined with other hand traps, especially Effect Veiler Infinite Impermanence, because most of the time what that means is if they commit like a Snake Eye Ash to the board and you Infinite Impermanence or Veiler, later on they're not going to be able to easily play around Nibiru because they have not been able to send the Snake Eye Ash plus something else to summon out of Flamberge before 5 summons a lot of time, right? So more often than not, it does mean that you get a lot of value and you're able to clear the board when you have Nibiru and Effect Veiler or Infinite Impermanence or another hand trap, which is why I think Nibiru is just so high impact. It's always good when combined with anything else. It's good when combined with any other hand traps. Also good combined with board breakers. Also good combined with your board. Like if you have any semblance of a board, having a nib as defense is just like one of the most ultimate cards that you can have to protect yourself. So that's why I really, really like the card. Obviously on its own, it's not that bad either. It does a lot, you know, in that combo where we just took a look when they had the Sunlight Wolf and the 2 weenies. We got rid of the APOLLOUSA basically, so that's already a big deal, right? A big trade. If they're not playing the Fire King cards, it might be difficult for them to actually remove the NIBIRU as well, because in the pure deck, you don't have a lot of removal options. So they will actually have to commit something like an SP Little Knight sometimes just to get rid of it. Or better yet, if you get to keep the NIBIRU, you can threaten to run over the IP Masquerena, which can cause a lot of problems for your opponent because you're kind of baiting them to use their cards without committing any other cards to the table. And again, guys, I personally am an advocate of summoning Nibiru in defense mode anytime there's a battle phase involved. Again, there are cards like Hida that can crash and search for Poplar. There are the Fire King monsters that can special summon out from the hand or the graveyard when you crash a fire monster. And I don't really care about Nibiru staying on the table, okay? And all we care about in the mirror match or in the Snake Eyes matchup is that we get to have another turn. We get to survive. That's all it really matters, especially when we're going first. Also true when we're going second. We just want to have another turn so we can start playing with all of our engine pieces again. It's very swingy. It's like a tempo game. So it really doesn't matter. If my Nibiru is dying by battle and they don't have enough to attack me for game, they're just swinging over with like a weenie, I'm fine with that. They can swing over with a Snake Eye Ash all day. I lose my nib, that's fine, but they lose their battle phase, right? So I don't want to take the risk of them actually having a Hida or like a Fire King monster and me literally giving them a potential additional extender on a silver platter because I handed them in nib in attack mode, right? So I'm still a firm believer. I'm just going to put everything in defense. Obviously, the token can come in attack mode if it's the turn 1 of the duel where there's no battle phase, and then we actually get the onus to crash our Hida or to crash our fire monsters to special summon out Garunix or Baby Phonics. So that's just one thing to note, but generally you want to summon things out in defense mode even though it has less defense. So yeah, that about does it for the basic hand traps right there. I know this video is a little long, but guys, let me know what you think. Do you want to see like more stuff like this where we're going like really into the meat and potatoes of how to play, like the very niche interactions, or is this something that's a little bit boring and we should probably focus on more high-level content? Guys, let me know in the comments below what do you think. And yeah, if you guys think there are any other better ways to hand trap in this matchup, let me know in the comments because I would love to know. I learned so much from you guys in the comments as well as from other people's videos in the community. So yeah, guys, thanks a lot for sharing. Other than that, we'll see you guys in the next video, and bye-bye.